Before we could move it, it had a tree growing through the shifter hole and out the windshield.
It's perfect for a vintage guy. Just insane cheap. What I have is very random. It started looking pretty rough. And then it's sat next to, so Junior has that car currently. It was the backup car that he had at his final race at Homestead. I happened to be the last one to drive for Junie Donlevy.
Were you swindled, or did the guy not know?
We're here in Elgin, Illinois, Engineer Components, and they got a pretty awesome car collection in there. AJ's gonna show us what's going on.
Yeah, let's go check it out.
So you used to race in ARCA?
Yeah, my dad's been involved in motorsport since he was very young. He got involved with Bob Schacht in the mid-'80s, about 84 or so like that. We started our own thing in March of 2000, and then that's when ACC Motorsports basically started.
Some of these cars are active race cars, others are displays, and that one in particular catches my attention because it's been in one of these videos before, but not in this building.
There was many cars at that Kissimmee auction that I really wanted. It was just which ones could we afford, and it ended up being just the one. But that was kind of a sad deal. The way that all that went down. There's probably even more history behind it that we don't know. I'm sure there's a lot of race cars that people are like, oh yeah, it was this, and then it was this. But before all that, there's probably some hidden history that we don't really even fully know yet. Which happens with some of these other cars, to where I'll have them for a few years and not know the whole story, and then little by little, by giving people, chassis numbers and asking around.
Because this was an old Junior Johnson car, so who knows what the heck it did, or
right.
who drove it.
Exactly.
As you lean on a legitimate IROC car.
This is
How did you get this car?
There's a guy in Colorado had it, and he got it at the auction in, I think it was 2009.
When they liquidated IROC.
Yeah, which actually, it was one of the first time I ever tried to mess with a computer, because there was an online auction as well for that deal. And we saw these cars go for just insane cheap, to where I called my father and said, hey, we need to get one of these things. And he's like, well, what are we gonna do with it? At the time, our full focus and funding was, racing in ARCA and stuff like that. So he's like, what are you gonna do with that? I was like, I don't know. So we didn't get it. I think they were going for between 10 and 15 grand roughly. But we bought it a few years ago for a little more than that, knowing that it's a legit car. I mean, there was no way to copy these things. Many people drove it. It's had the most history for sure. And then of course Ray figured out that this particular car, being car 4 of this gen, is car 27. When Ray ended up, starting there, he wanted to start numbering cars, and this was the 27th, which I think is way cool because I was born on the 27th. That was a pretty cool deal at Lime Rock that we brought this car, and we're gonna do more of that. Monterey next year is gonna be a very interesting event.
Has that been publicly announced yet?
I don't think so.
Let's say there might be more IROC coming, official details pending.
There's more people that drove this that aren't on that list. Trickle and Jay Sauter, Dave Marcus, they obviously all drove this car a lot because it was a test car as well. So they're not on the list, but they for sure drove it. There's a few more that aren't on the list for whatever reason that we found out later drove it.
Do you think you'll ever get this on the track at one of those events, or just leave it as static show?
So at Lime Rock, I didn't. Monterey, we will.
I want to know more about this. This is a odd duck right here, the Elliott Marino car.
Yeah, that was a one-year thing, 1998. And from what I've been told, there's 2 cars that had a red chassis with this paint scheme, which was the very first race that Jerry drove, which was Daytona, obviously. This is a short track car, so he run this, I think the second race at that time was Rockingham. So he run this one at Rockingham, Richmond, places like that. But it's one of 2 cars that was, like I said, with the red chassis with this, but then the other one was changed, so it's the only one left. And there's a little McDonald's arch right there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this was a Bill Elliott 94 car,
exactly,
and then when they did the Elliott Marino deal, they pulled some of the Elliott cars into that.
Right.
That's interesting.
Exactly, yeah.
I've never seen a oil plug down here.
Yeah, that's a first for me too. I saw you looking at this list. For some reason this list is in here because I was looking at it the other day because I was trying to think of who drove the other car for Bill Elliott, and it was Dennis Setzer drove the McRib. This is a list of defunct teams as of '09, which is a pretty sad list. I happen to be the last one to drive for Junie Donlevy, which is kind of cool, from 1950 to 2005.
For Boudreaux's butt paste.
Yeah, but
you're the butt paste guy.
I didn't bring that sponsor. It was brought to me. We couldn't turn it down. But like, there's the list is like, it's, you know, sad. You know, like Jasper Motorsports. You know, 71 to, you know, back to Roger Penske, DK Ulrich. They all were involved. You know, it's just and then the list of Busch teams and Craftsman truck teams. I had to save this because this is the time where it all started to go weird, and now it's a charter deal and good luck. You can't build a car to go compete and be fast. It's
That's well said.
just not going to happen.
I like this.
This still even has a little tag on
Oh
there
yeah,
for
little
the
camera thing. Yeah.
little camera logo.
How did you get this car?
That's a funny story. It was a late night, and for whatever reason, the guy was selling these on eBay. This one and the '94 on eBay. It went off at like 10:30 at night, and I was sitting there doing nothing at 10:30, getting ready to go to bed or whatever. And I saw that car first, you know, auctioning off. So there was like 4 minutes left in the bid. It's like, oh my God. So there's 24 pictures. I'm scrolling, scroll. I get to about picture number 10 of that car. It was like, cool, bought it. I think it was 11.7 was the bid. So when we went to pick the car up, it's a good thing that we brought our hauler. We almost brought a single car trailer. Went to go get it, and the guy's like, so here's the other car. I was like, what do you mean? Like, well, yeah, these are yours. Like, so he didn't, and so we were literally on the way home, and I'm scrolling through what I bought, and I get past picture 12, and now it's picture 13 through 24 is of this car. And I didn't even fully read the full description, just pulled the trigger, thought I got that for 11.7, ended up getting them both for 11.7.
Really?
So,
What a freaking deal that was.
It was an insane deal, which is why, believe it or not, this is the only car in this whole area that I would sell. And I would sell it for a good price, because I got it. I just told you what I paid. I'm not scared to tell people what I paid for some of this stuff, but yeah, I'll give. I mean, I think we're looking at like 5 or something, or maybe we can get more than that, but I don't need to, you know. So someday, maybe someone will vintage race this thing. It needs a little bit of love, and we started to buff the windows a little bit just to see if they're savable, and I think they are. It's perfect for a vintage guy.
Yeah, this is really, really cool, especially it being a Bill Elliott car.
And it being a short track car. It's already got, like, you know, the big holes in the nose. You don't gotta cut the thing apart. You know, it's already been. It doesn't have ductwork in it now, but it's, you know.
So the
It's
car you thought you were
overall,
buying, I want to learn about that next. Yeah, let's see what's under here.
I mean, it's a clean ride, that's for sure. And honestly, we haven't done anything to it. We've just barely cleaned up a little bit. In fact, like the whole car looked like that down there. Like it was like, see how like this is all nasty?
Yeah.
Like, it's all of it, but had this grime of whatever on it.
The guy you got it from, did he buy them from some liquidation auction, or how did he get?
There was an auction in Dawsonville, I think, because there's pictures of Bill signing this one at some warehouse. He said, it was somewhere in Dawsonville. He bought it from a guy that bought it from Bill, I guess. This one's pretty interesting because it was a Speedway car for 1999, and then they used it for the 25th anniversary. So this, from what I've been told, this is one of the only. There might have been a few other show cars, but they're not around anymore. But this is the only 99 bodied Taurus that they used for a show car in 2000. That's why it has that sticker on it.
Okay.
So like that sticker was added, and the contingencies. This is different from when it actually raced. This one was old. We got this. It was one of Gene Felton's restores. We don't know the origination of like who drove it or what, but we do know that it was a Busch car. It's got a V6 still in it.
It's like when you say Gene Felton, it could be real or it could be something else.
Yeah, he did a little bit of everything. And then this guy, Jack Tant, I've never heard of him until we got this engine, and I looked him up, and he's some legendary builder, so that's pretty cool.
He raced too, didn't he? That name sounds really familiar.
Yeah.
Like,
And then this one just toys, you know, like this is a giant diecast, really. I don't know. I just and the one back there, the DuPont car, that's a real toy. It's not even a car. It's just a body.
Now, what about this Darrell Waltrip car over here with the engine in it?
we went to Travis Carter. We were pretty tight with him, and Lou Seifel, my team manager, was really close with him after so many years. He called up Lou and said, hey, I got a bunch of cutoff bodies. I know you guys are looking for a cutoff body. Cool. So we go look at this cutoff body. We got it for a good price, whatever. And then we're walking through the shop, and I overhear someone saying, well, we got to get rid of that car because Todd won't drive a Hopkins. He wants all Laughlin.
Did you know that American homeowners have over $32 trillion in equity, and criminals are targeting it with a growing scam that FBI calls house stealing? Scammers can transfer your title out of your name by using a one-page document they file at the county. Then they can take out loans against it or even sell it behind your back. And the scariest part, you won't find out about it until a collection or foreclosure notices start arriving in your mailbox, leaving you with a financial and legal nightmare. The best way to protect your equity is with Home Title Lock's exclusive $1 Million Triple Lock Protection. This service offers 24/7 monitoring, urgent alerts, and if fraud should occur, their US-based restoration team will spend up to $1 million to fix the fraud and restore your title. So when was the last time you checked your title? And for most people, the answer is never, and that's exactly what the scammers are counting on. That's why we've partnered with Home Title Lock to offer you all a chance to make sure you're not already a victim. You use my promo code Stapleton at HometitleLock.com. You'll get 30 days of free protection and a free title history report to lock in your peace of mind. And be sure you check out the $1 Million Triple Lock protection details when you get there. Link below. That's HometitleLock.com and promo code Stapleton.
So as we're kind of hearing that, I asked Travis, and says, what's the deal on that? At the time, it was a blue light special. It was baby blue. It had a 66 on it. And Todd Bodine drove it one race, didn't like it. So I asked him, I said, so you're selling that car? I said, yeah. I was like, okay. So he gave us a smoking deal. I mean, it had like brakes, everything on it. We ran it quite a bit in ARCA. It's had a front clip. It's had almost all new sheet metal except for a roof. Well, greenhouse is still original, which you can kind of tell. I don't know if you can still tell this. You can tell it was at one time a 2000 or a 99 because under here's a filler panel.
Oh yeah, got the oval window.
Yeah, if you look straight behind the seat.
Oh, yep. Yeah.
But it was one of Darrell's favorite cars. It was the car that he drove a lot in his final season. It was the backup car that he had at his final race at Homestead. So after all that, when I moved back up here, we wanted to do something different. So I figured, hey, let's paint it back to the way that it was when Darrell drove it. I happened to be helping a guy. He bought a bunch of storage units, and he's like, hey, I bought a bunch of storage units. Can you help me move them? So I helped him move some storage units. And as we're moving stuff, there was a bunch of decals, and they're all marked 66. Travis Carter was like, whoa. So like all the decals, like all this is all original, and I didn't have any of that. I got lucky too. Like some areas they did, like this never actually stuck. It's been like that since I put it on. But you know what? The decals, like the paper was yellow, and it was just, it was a chore to get the old paper off and then clean all the glue off the decal without ruining it, and then repaper it, and it was quite the project.
What are the odds you stumble across an entire decal set for a car that you have?
That's why I just had to do it.
And what about this one? It looks like it's under construction.
Yeah, that's another find where it was, Bob Schacht, he found that. It had a tree growing through it.
Yeah, wouldn't it be nice if Bob was here to tell us about it?
Yeah, that would be pretty cool.
Oh wait, he's right over there.
And then we got some of the restore pictures. He can tell you about the process of what he did here.
Arnie and AJ were watching the movie, and then Arnie called me up the next day and said, you know, didn't you build some of the cars for the Days of Thunder movie? And I said, yeah. He goes, well, I want a 46 city car. I'm like, okay. And then he told me what he wanted me to do and everything. I says, where am I going to find a Lumina? Luminas ain't been around in years, you know. So we searched around, trying to find one. But you can see in one of the pictures there, it had a tree. Before we could move it, it had a tree growing through the shifter hole and out the windshield. And that's just some of the branches that were left in it. And we drug it out of the field, and you can see we chopped on it and cleaned it. And it took us about a week to get it to where we could start redoing it. And then I took it and had it all sandblasted, and because it was rusty and stuff like that. And then we put a whole complete body and stuff on it, other than the greenhouse and stuff, like from the door tops down. And then we painted everything and made it, you know, kind of the same way that we made the cars for the Days of Thunder.
Do you know what it was?
So originally, we're pretty sure this was a Piper Busch car that Bobby Allison had, because it's got the 3-link suspension underneath the back of it. You can see there where the 3rd link was at. So some of the history, we think when you can tell in some of the pictures, the color that the inside, that orange and stuff was some of the stuff that Bobby Allison had back in the day when they were running the 3-link stuff in the Busch series.
So it wasn't 3-link anymore when you found it,
No,
was
it was a truck arm car because they changed the rules to where you couldn't use a 3-link anymore. And it's a Laughlin chassis. And we looked for numbers and stuff on it, but they didn't put numbers on them like they do today, like, you know, on the 7-bar and stuff like that. So, but the best we could track down is, you know, where it came from and some of the history back to where it came from before it wound up out in the field with a tree growing through it.
Well, that makes sense because Bobby was a Laughlin guy, wasn't he?
Bobby was a Laughlin guy. He was originally brought, you know, Laughlin to the party there back in the day, and, you know, NASCAR, Winston Cup stuff, you know, front steer cars, especially when the radial tires came in. So yeah, and then, you know, Bobby was the first one to, you know, come up with the 3-link stuff too originally.
Are the rest of the 3-link brackets under there, or just the top one?
Gosh, I really don't know for sure.
The
I
top
don't
one
remember.
is for sure.
Yeah, the
still
top
there.
one for sure is there. I don't know if it has the ones on the side here or not, to tell you the truth.
On that side, you can kind of see over there.
Come off
The
end of
pocket
frame
and the-
rails.
Yeah.
A piece of 2x4. It comes straight.
Oh, look at that. It's still there on that side.
Yep, I can see
The
that.
right side. Oh, there it is. See it?
Yep.
They're both still there.
Are they? Okay.
Yep. Holy crap. That's pretty cool.
Yep, so was that top one.
The top one's still there, yeah.
Do you think you'll get this one to a running state and do anything with
I'd
it?
like to. I mean, it's on the back burner right now, obviously. But yeah, someday. I mean, maybe before the new movie comes out, would be pretty cool. Which is, I got a couple years, so that's good. They're gonna start production on that, I think, next summer.
That's what they're talking about.
Yeah.
Were there any strange things that you couldn't really, or had to be detailed about to make sure the body was right for Illumina versus building a body for a normal?
No, I mean, you know, we used the top parts of the quarter panels, so I mean, it was easy just to make, you know, the sides, you know, to cover the tires. You know, there were no character lines and stuff. We kind of put some of the flair into it, like we were doing, you know, building the big fenders for downforce and stuff like that. Try to make it, you know, kind of along the way the cars were. A lot of the cars were the Speedway cars, you know, from the movie and stuff like that. And the 46 car that we built like this, when we first gave them this car for the movie, it was one of the cars that Tom Cruise actually liked better when he drove it himself than the rest of the cars. See, the rest of the cars, a lot of them were from Hendricks and stuff like that. But when we delivered this car the way it was, it had a real race motor in it, seat, the whole 9 yards. And some of the scenes in the movie with Cruise were that car that me and Mike Mack worked with me back then, and him and I built the cars for the movie. But they always, some of the guys told me that was one of the cars that he liked more than the rest of them. It was the car that we built for him.
And because when you put it out there, it was full blown. Like this, it was set up. It had the right parts bolted to it.
When the first car we did was this car, not this particular car, but
Yeah.
the one for the movie. And, you know, we thought it had to be a real race car. So it had a real race motor in it and the whole 9 yards. And then when we get there and see some of the cars were
They're just thrown together.
Holy cow. You know, I'm like, really? So the couple cars we built after that, we just kind of, you know, I had an old El Camino. We took the motor out of it, stuck it in one of the cars. And as long as it moved and made noise, that's all they cared about, you know. And then they would keep either painting them or whatever for each scene. Our cars were all, you know, different all the time. So they had people, you know, working right there on the set, almost, you know, painting cars as they were shooting the scenes, you know.
Wow.
How did you get contacted to build that car?
So if I remember right, I think it was through Hutchison Pagan, you know, because I was running Winston Cup back then. And I think Dick Hutchison or Ron, one of them asked me something about, you know, do I want to, you know, do some luminas and this, that, and the other thing. And I didn't really know what they were talking about. And because I was in South Carolina, I didn't really hear everything about the movie that was going on. And then finally they said, well, you need to do this because we need a bunch of cars. We didn't have no updated cars like this that they needed for the movie. So like I say, me and Mike, I think we built 4 or 5 of them, and I mean, we built them in a hurry. See, most of the drivers that they had were all motorcycle guys. motocross type drivers. They didn't really, they had some real drivers, but most of them were motorcycle drivers, because I tried to get in there because I wanted to be in on it, driving it, And like I say, then when Arnie wanted one too, then it kind of brought back some memories of how me and Mike put the things together. And I remember the first one we did, which was this car here. I took it out. We just got done with the car, and we were supposed to deliver it that week. And at the house that I was living, had a great big yard and stuff in a field or whatever. So like a fool, I get in the car and I'm out there riding it around in the field and knock the whole air dam off in front of it. So we had to fix all that before I could take the car and deliver it. Back then, some of the guys, depending upon who you were, they ran shocks in the front with the brakes in the rear, or they ran the shocks in the back and the brakes in the front. So that's why there's two mounts like that.
So this was probably built with the shocks in the rear, and somebody added that. That looks.
No, that's the way they were doing it, and a lot of times it depended upon what racetrack they were going to with it. And we all switched now to putting the shocks in the back and the brakes in the front, because the brakes would run cooler and you can get better air to them and stuff. But there were still people that wanted to run them in the back or the front, and then you had a bar that went across here to help support the shocks. And they didn't shocks they didn't do anything like what we're doing today, so it didn't take a real lot to support them.
CLR was the last team that I ever saw do that, and that was in like 2002. They even 2002 they were still running the shocks in the front. I swear they're the only car in North Carolina in 2002 to be doing it that way, but that's what the engineer wanted.
Is this a real Red Bull car?
Yeah, so that's from 2011 of their last season. Brian Vickers drove it. It's the only one that they did this paint scheme with, which I have not found out the whole exact story on why this paint scheme is what it is. I'm sure there's something cool behind it, but it's there's not many Red Bull cars left. From what I've been told, there's probably 5 in the world. Most of them got converted, or Michael Waltrip Racing bought that whole deal. They rewrapped or cut up and changed everything.
I wonder if any of the people in these pictures are going to be watching this video.
Possible.
Maybe this guy.
But from what I've been told, it was the last Red Bull chassis, 390, which was the last one, which is pretty incredible that Red Bull Racing built 390 cars in their short time in NASCAR.
Really?
2000.
How did they build 390 cars and none of them are left? Did they crush them when they were done with them? Like what?
It blows my mind. I'm not. Maybe they started on 100. Like maybe the first one was maybe, I don't know. I'm still yet to hear that whole story. But when I've told some people the numbers, they're like, oh yeah, they built that many cars. It's like I still can't. It's still hard to believe. That's a lot of cars.
That's
I mean,
a lot
they did
of
run
cars.
4 cars at certain races. But
Are there some interesting construction qualities about this chassis that they were doing differently than other people?
yeah, there's a few things. I mean, the drag links is pretty interesting. I mean, I don't know. Some certain things just kind of bother me. Like this is nice and strong. I mean, yeah, wow, strong. But then you know what? It must have been tested and whatever. It just seems like these ears don't keep up with this. Like your weak points here. You'd think maybe it's not, but it just seems to be. It's just different for sure.
That's neat. I've never seen a logo molded into the composite like that on the bottom of a hood.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Honestly, this is one of my favorite cars. I don't know. I had a lot of moonlighters that used to work for me, that worked for Red Bull. They used to bring cases of Red Bull over and clothing and stuff. I mean, that's why they would just bring all this stuff to me. Like stuff like this. Oh, you want a tire cover? Sure. Actually Boris gave me this recently because he drove for Red Bull, but they would just drop this stuff off. Like, oh, they were throwing these out.
You didn't get any?
A lot of stuff got thrown away. Literally, they were like, no, you got to throw all of your gear away. And people were like, really? Like, I'm gonna give it to my friends, sell some, do it, You
didn't get any of those pants with the writing across the butt
No,
that said, gives you wings or something?
No, didn't get any of those, but I surely remember those.
There's some.
I don't think people were too fond of wearing those.
There should be a
And there's
documentary
stuff
on
like
the
this.
Red Bull
It's
team.
behind a old gas station. They're throwing that away, so I grabbed it. Same with that, like this behind you. That, like you said, you got something similar where you found at a gas station or whatever. they were throwing it up.
It's quite the gas station find. Mine's not that big.
Started to get fire suits. This was the first one I got, and it happens to be a chocolate Myers suit, which is way cool. He's got his initials there inside. That's why it's so big. He's a very tall, big guy, as we know.
How did you get this thing?
You know, people just sell random stuff, and the person who sold it probably didn't realize, you know, that it was an actual chocolate Myers suit, or else they probably would have wanted a lot more money for it if they knew what it was. But yeah, it basically was just listed as a crew uniform. Yeah, I think it said crew uniform. What I have is very random, I will say.
What's the deal with this Chase Elliott car? Is it real?
No, it's a replica.
What was the chassis?
It was a Bush. It was a nationwide car. It was used by several teams. I'm not sure. I mean, I know Bob Schacht. He ended up getting a hold of it for me to make a tribute to his to Chase's championship when he won the championship in the nationwide series. At the time, we were gonna probably do some vintage racing or something with it. This is during the time when Bill Elliott drove our TA2 car, and we had just gotten that car, and we were talking about doing something with Bill in some SVRA and HSR, stuff like that. So the original plan was to put Bill or whoever in this for some vintage stuff, but it just never, and it still could happen, who knows. He's still in great shape.
The RCR chassis?
Yes.
So this is probably like an old Austin Dillon car?
Yeah, most likely, yeah.
It's a really nice metallic blue.
Yeah, is it real paint?
Like I said, Bob, I know they did, I'm not sure if he painted himself or, but I know he did a lot of body work. It was a pretty beat up car.
You did a good job.
But yeah, they got it all straightened out. And
It looks legitimate. It doesn't, you know, a lot of tributes, they don't, I mean, like whoever did that, the graphics are just kind of like,
right.
Fools 70% of people, but this looks
really
square up.
He did a really good job on that.
What's the origin of this car?
Another unknown as far as origin.
Seems like most random cars turn into Earnhardt cars.
Yeah, it's definitely not an original. I think that it was a sportsman car is what is some of the research I've done. That it was a sportsman car.
That's kind of the interesting thing about some of these is like, yeah, okay, maybe this wasn't actually a Dale Earnhardt car, that wasn't actually a Dale Earnhardt car, but they were somebody's Monte Carlo that they raced back in the day.
Yeah.
And even if it was a blank car, it's still an old race car and it's still interesting.
Yeah, exactly. And you know, I find out more history randomly on them, just little by little. After these things have been sitting here for years, one day people will just call, oh, by the way, I'm getting back to you on that chassis number you gave me, and this is what it was. And so eventually I get the info. It'd be cool to get the whole story on them though, which that's tough. This one is so it's a street car that Wood Brothers, they used to have someone drive it promotionally to the races. When they went to the race, you know, when they drove it to the, you know, they take these off, all these just pop right out, so they have lights and turn signals and stuff. And when they get to the racetrack, they put these in there and park it somewhere, and it just was like it just parked outside the track and like promotional for Pure later.
So this is what an old school show car.
Yeah, and then, I mean, when I say when it was a street car, I mean, it had all the pictures that I've seen of the original. It was a full-blown, awesome interior. When we bought it, it was just like this. We haven't done much to it, honestly, but cleaned the damn thing and put new tires on it. But eventually, someone, you know, made it into a kind of a race car. So someday we're gonna go ahead and put it back. I mean, it's got nice doors to it. The headliner is beautiful in the thing, to where it needs some carpet and some seats. It had this roll bar, but not that center one. So we're gonna lot that out. This is, like I said, this is on the back burner. But it's everything that you see is original, except, well, I was told actually it was all original. But I can tell that from here, that's not. Like, this is a decal.
Yeah.
Everything else is painted. So something must have happened to it, and that's definitely not original. But everything else besides this quarter panel is original paint.
I was wondering what the deal with this was, because it's probably possible, but really hard to fake this kind of hand lettered patina, and you can tell this wasn't actually a race car. Like, what is this thing?
Yeah.
That makes sense.
That was another weird purchase, right? Like I said, I find stuff for the right price. We haven't done it since earlier this year, January, the Winston car was our last.
What's the origin of the Wrangler one, the other Wrangler one?
Well, so it was a barn find in the Nashville area. From what I've been told, it was driven by Darrell Waltrip and a few other guys at Nashville, like a sportsman type series. So it's not original, obviously, but there's a lot of cool stuff. That this is Gene Felton's last restore, which to me, that's like, I almost get emotional talking about it, because we went there and the thing sat online. You probably saw it. It was online for like a year and a half, and he didn't quite get what he should have gotten, but he was having health issues anyways, and we picked it up for a good price, and he was happy that we ended up with it. So it started out that literally it started out looking pretty rough, and then it sat next to so Junior has that car currently, but it was nastiness. It was done at Gene Felton's where they restored it. Look at that. You need a tetanus shot to get in that thing.
So you don't know who was the original car owner or builder of this thing?
No, another one that we'll hopefully get more information as it goes. There we go.
Did Gene think it was Dale Earnhardt's?
No.
Why does it say that?
I don't know.
Says it down there too.
Yeah. That's a good question.
So you don't think it is, but he thought it was.
It's very possible.
Or he was telling people it was.
Yeah, and we knew that it wasn't. Number one, I've been around this long enough. I just, I could just tell. Like, for example, he never ran a number 8 with the venture with that. I mean, when he ran the number 8, it looked like that. Look at the quarter window difference.
Yeah.
So when he ran this, when Dale ran this actual body style, it was the 15. So that kind of gives it away right out of the gate that it's not real. But it's just a beautiful restore. I think the only flaw in this car is right there, like literally, like it's like that's why we have the mirrors, because underneath, and everything is just perfect.
And what about this petty car?
So yeah,
It looks like another real old race car.
For sure, is that it was used for a Winston car. You can't really see here, but you can almost tell that there's still a 1 underneath it. The back foot still has it's still white and gold. But it was basically a petty show car, and then it was bought by Winston to do their promotional, and then painted back to this somewhere in the mid 90s, from what I've been told. And then Ronnie Thomas ended up with it. And then he found his rookie season car. So to help restore his rookie car, he sold this. So that's where and this was actually the first one of all of this madness, 2018.
Wow.
And my father, he was looking into getting, he wanted a Roger Penske Mark Donahue Camaro from TransAm. That's what he was looking for to get. And I got back to him, I said, hey, the replicas are about 120. If you can get a real one, if the guy will sell it, it'll be a few million. And he's like, okay, let's just get some stock cars and start finding some good deals. So this was the first one that we found online. And then it just started going from there.
This is your first purchase of all
Yeah,
these
first
cars.
one, yeah.
Wow.
In
And it's
2018.
weird because I lived in Mooresville for 11 years, and you would think that I've obtained all of this but no. Like, the only car in this whole area that came from down south was the 66 that I raced in ARCA. So the rest of them are all purchases, pretty recent, last 6 or 7 years.
So this would be historically significant because I believe, if I remember correctly from doing those videos, that the petty Winston show car was the first RJR show car for that whole program ever. So
Right.
it's very possible that this could be the first purpose-built show car in the modern era of NASCAR.
I think it's if not the first, yes, a very early one. It was definitely. There's some things I can tell on it that it was not a race car. It's got a Roadrunner frame. They put the Magnum body on it. I think they kind of did it while they were switching to the Magnum for that year. But yeah, the only thing that I can say that it was definitely a Winston car. I have some pictures of it when it was a Winston car, and then the red interior kind of proves that, because they and underneath that red it is blue. which is how we know that originally it was at least a petty show car.
Huh.
So
Yeah.
was this a Will Spencer car? Was this from Will Spencer's
Mm.
show car program or
This is before Will Spencer.
before? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Winston show car program, I think it started with Petty,
Okay.
and then it went to Junior Johnson, which is why that was that car. And then it turned into JKS in like 87 or something, which I think this was like Will's first project on a Winston show car.
Yeah.
I don't know, could be wrong, but it went something like that.
Yeah.
Now what about that one? At this point, I'm just wondering what.
Yeah, I mean, from the only thing I've heard is, well, I know for sure it was restored at Ernie Elliott's in 2002. As far as the on-track history, Rita Greenwood, I'm pretty sure his name was. It was a number 3 or maybe 03. It was blue. It looked like the David Pearson car. It was blue with a silver top. The story that I was told is that it was a Holman Moody kit car. Like you can buy the stuff from Holman Moody and make, certain things, like the rear shock brake, the shock struts, we'll call it the shock mounting. That's the kind of thing that you would buy that from Holman Moody already pre-bent, and you would just weld it into your car. I'm not sure about the actual roll cage. I do know about that brace I was just talking about. Some of the other stuff that I know they pre-bent that bar and sent them out, and certain bars, like I said, I'm not sure about the whole cage, but
Honestly, the cage looks way too nice to be old.
yeah.
The
And then-
welds are usually like just
Yeah.
look like dog shit.
Right. But yeah, it was restored at Ernie Elliott's. They did this paint scheme just to be different, do something different.
Are those actual Holman Moody double center wheels?
Yeah.
I don't know enough about those to know. Looking right at them, I know they're not a junkyard steel wheel, but
No, yeah, that's the real deal.
You ever tried to find family of that Ray Greenwood guy, or see if he built this car in his barn or something?
The closest I got was a guy that said that he worked on the car and that he worked on it in Hueytown at one time. It was there, they were getting help from, the Alabama gang. Not sure which one of the members or whatever, but he did say he worked on it in Hueytown.
Maybe it's got Bobby Allison spindles on it.
Seriously.
Is it front steer? Let's open the
I
hood.
mean, you never know. It could.
I mean, just being worked on in that shop isn't enough.
Yeah, that's a rear steer.
Do you know what the origin is on this Monte Carlo?
Oh, another one, not much. I mean, I know it was run in Hooters Pro Cup, and I only know that because you can kind of see where it still says Hooters. Well, not right now, you can't because the cover's not. I'm only finding certain things. Like I can tell it said Hooters under, somewhere.
Oh, yeah.
At one time, you can see where they never got it off entirely. I bought it as I thought it was a real one. This is probably the only car in this shop that it was a mistake. Like I didn't get what I was told I was getting. I thought I was getting a really good deal on a real one. Turns out I got an okay deal on a fake one.
You're swindled.
Yeah.
Were you swindled, or did the guy not know?
I don't know. I don't know if he was telling me the truth, and that's all. I'm not sure if he was lied to or what, but the first thing I did was measure the wheelbase. It's a 105.
Wow.
So
No, that would have been a quick giveaway.
done. And he argued, oh, it's not. I'm like, well, my tape measure is pretty accurate. We work in 64ths here, so it's a 105.
No, the Jimmie Johnson looking car, I saw that they have a DEI chassis number on it.
Yes. So that was. It had silver vinyl on it. It had a target under the hood. I'm not sure if it's still there. Well, the story on that is, so we had, the Petty car and the Earnhardt car, and my dad's like, find a Jimmie Johnson car. So now we have the 7-time champions, all lined up here. So this was just I had a car that we found for good price and had it wrapped. But right here it has a Target sticker at one time, and there was a lot of silver vinyl on it. Yeah, and it was around that time where DEI Ganassi was basically the same team.
Who drove? Was this Juan Pablo Montoya then?
So at that time, yes, and possibly Kyle Larson at that, was that?
I don't know when he came into the equation.
Yeah.
So well, I don't know. They started running these bodies in 13.
13, yeah.
Yeah, so maybe it could be.
That'd be
Possibly,
pretty cool.
yeah.
Like if it was
more unknown history, you know?
if it ends up being a Kyle Larson car, you could rewrap it as.
I mean, I could. I mean,
Target
my
car.
dad really likes the fact of the 3 7-time champion things in a row. I think it's pretty cool too. Now, if we ever found out that it's got some serious, awesome history, and it's okay, yeah, then we'll put it back to that, and we'll have to just wrap another car, make it a Jimmie Johnson car. But as of now, I haven't found any surprisingly awesome history on it yet. But like I said, you never know. I get weird calls once in a while. People find information after giving them a number years later. So.
Well, this video might help some of that come out if you got any numbers.
Sure. Absolutely. My late aunt, she started getting in NASCAR about 2015, 16-ish, and her favorite driver was Martin Truex. And after she passed, you know, we kind of thought, hey, that'd be cool to do something in her memory, because she was always, as we were acquiring these cars, you know, can you find a Truex car? And why can't you find a Truex car? And you guys should get a Truex car. And so we ended up doing it. It's kind of a cool thing behind it that we just ended up doing it just because she thought it'd be cool to get a Truex car. So we got something to remember her by. It was back there in the museum for the longest time. Recently was looking at buying another car for Grand National. It was very similar to this. And I just kind of started looking more at this car. I was like, this thing's awesome. Like it's just got the underneath beautiful. It's got the right truck arms on it, short truck arm. The rear end housing is pretty nice. Everything bolted to the front was junk. It was just thrown on there. I like this drag link a lot. I like a lot of this car. It was an early Michael Waltrip racing car, is what I've come to find out. So a lot of this ingenuity was from Stevie Levitt when he was over there. Like in my opinion, the coolest shock mounts of all time, where they literally wedged a cone-shaped piece of tubing up into the frame, welded it top, and I mean that's just, to me, that's as cool as it gets. Stuff like that, you know.
If this was an early Michael Waltrip racing car, could it have been an actual Truex car? Does not this Truex car?
That's been brought up, and it's very, very possible actually. Like coincidentally, it got a rap of a Truex, and he could have possibly at one time drove it.
That would be funny.
With different colors on it, yeah.
It would have been like a '56 Napa car, right?
Right.
If that's what it was.
So it had enough awesome stuff on it to where I said, you know what, I think she'd be okay with it on the racetrack. So we're gonna leave it the way that it is with the 78. I run 79 anyways, so 78 and 79. We'll eventually take the tractor boats and all that cool stuff off, unless Martin wants to drive it. If he wants to drive it, I mean, you never know. Get him involved in the series would be kind of cool. But either way, we're gonna leave it the way that it is and just take off the sponsorship and leave it so it looks what it was. And the fans like that stuff, and that's in our series.
And that's what you got that yellow car over there for, right?
Yeah, I didn't get a chance to run it very much. Only tested it. It was a really good car. It was an old ARCA car. It started out as a 105 wheelbase J&J Racing Redman, that Busch car like Kevin LePage drove. Ran it as a 105 in Pro Cup for a year or so, and then stretched it for ARCA. And when we first did it, they didn't like it. Like when this was first put on the racetrack at Toledo in 2004 with a Pontiac body on it, they sent us home. They're like, no, and it fit every template. It was just, we went really far with it. But you know what? Not many years later, there's all these cars that are twisted and way more than what we did. We were one of the first to do an ARCA where we took full advantage of ARCA's quarter panel heights were an inch higher than Cup with the same roof height. So we did a lot of raking, and we probably even went a little bit higher and then kind of dimpled down where they measure even.
Yeah.
So we did a little bit of things, but it fit the templates, and they just didn't want it to race. I said, well, how much weight do I got to put on it? They said, you can't. I said, let me put 100 pounds on it, let me race at least. Nope. 200 pounds, nope. 300 pounds, nope. So Joe Wells finally looked at me. He said, "There's not enough ballast in this paddock for you to race that car here." I was like, "All right." So we went, put in a trailer and went home. Cut the body off of it. We were going on to the Ford program with the 8s at the time, so we put a Ford body on it. Started out as actually a cutoff body.
Cut off body from who?
It was a Wood Brothers cutoff body.
So that was a Wood Brothers roof.
Yeah, basically just the roof and deck lid. I think they were throwing it away, actually. I don't think we even paid for it. But it turned out to be a good car for Grand National. I put a TA2 engine in it. It's cool that we can do that with old cars now. That's what's great about this series. Well, that's our pride and joy right there. Pancho Weaver originally put it together 2018. Boris ran really well. He won with it, actually, a few times.
We kept breaking and we with the IR with it.
And then Adam won in his first start in this car with us at COTA. We've done a lot to it since then. It's evolved quite a bit, even since 18. Bigger brakes, a lot more power. It's got better radiators, better transmission. We call it the fastest GT car in the world. I'm not sure if that's right or wrong, but
I know
we can't think of any other series out there that runs cars that are faster than TA cars currently. And this being, in most people's opinion, the fastest TA car right now. Like, we kind of proved that with Ernie Francis earlier this year. Track record on the pole in his 10th lap. There hasn't been any track records broken this year since then.
Yeah.
So I can go ahead and still say it. Hey, it's the fastest TA car. So in my opinion, it's the fastest GT car in the world. What's amazing is that TransAm cars and USAC stock cars, NASCAR, ARCA, were basically the same when they started out in the 60s. And this is what a TA car has evolved into, with extremely limited rules. Whereas NASCAR, obviously there's many rules. The rule book's 3 inches thick. This one, the rule book's like 3 paragraphs. And which is cool to an extent. It's very expensive, but there's a lot of, you can get pretty creative, with these cars in many different ways and be legal.
And I want to ask you about the origins of this particular building. Because even if it's not a race shop, I walk into a building and I think, what was this place? And I have to chain the floor. Like, what did you do in here? What did somebody do in here?
Yeah, it was Chicago Limousine was here until the end of 1999. So the whole place was a big assembly line for limousines. This is part of the assembly line through here, obviously, where as they were getting built and done, they would come in here and they would roll right into the paint booth. And the paint booth was partially functionable. It was almost the full length. It was 3 times that long. But for whatever reason, that end, there was a serious water leak or something happened with the ceiling to where it was just really messed up, to where we were like, you know what, we don't need a paint booth that's 60 feet long. It would have been pretty cool to keep it that way, because there's not many of that, but we had to cut it down and just save the part that was still functional. Yeah, so this car was the first Trans Am car that I ever bought. It was in 2010. It was just right down the road, actually. I got it out of a barn in Barrington from Jerry Legade. Everything is just completely different from anything you've ever seen. Like this rear end, for example. That's the only solid rear axle that you'll ever see that looks like that. I mean, it's like stupid light. It's from what I've been told, it's stronger than a Ford 9. I mean, obviously, it's a Ford 9 pumpkin in there, but the cool thing about it is, you change these pills and you can change camber and towing, or width if you wanted to. You can just put longer axles in it, and there's different spacers to make it longer if you needed to.
It is crazy looking.
And this cage, I mean, look at how small it is. It's like, they only had rules on certain things. So he went really narrow. It's like crazy narrow, almost unsafely narrow car. And then, everything's so narrow with these long, extremely long A-frames. This was the first car I've ever seen that had the steering. It goes like up above, when it's all together, this is like this, and the crankshaft pulley is below it. It actually runs behind the belts.
That's
kind of
weird.
like the new Cup cars are, where the steering is just perfectly straight.
See that 90 pit board? Is that whenever you drove the Buck Pace car?
Junior Donlevy. I was the last person to drive for the legendary Junior Donlevy. Sadly, we didn't, both races, like I said, they qualifying got rained out, so we went home and watched the race on TV.
Did you ever get a Boudreaux Buck Pace fire suit or anything like that?
No, they had, there was patches, and it was such a late last minute deal that they were just safety pinned on to my suit, so I didn't have to carry that Buck Pace logo forever.
What's the Riviera for? Is it like two?
That's my baby. Yeah, that's a weird story on that. On my way back, moving here in 2010, one of these I was towing stuff back, and one of these things, not this one, went zipping by me. And I've never seen one before. I was like, what was that? Like, it went by kind of fast. I thought it was like a Monte Carlo, that someone did something Corvette-ish on the back. Had no clue about a boat tail in 2010, zero. And then I was watching an episode of Counting Cars, and he was doing a show on a boat tail. And I was just like, oh my God, that's the car that I saw. And I want one bad, like really bad. And that was a few years before I actually ended up finding this on eBay. But the weird story about it is that I wanted a 71, because the 71 front is awesome, but the 71 rear is hideous. Okay, it's like, this is way more pronounced. It's like, and it's also like 12 inches longer. It just looks, I don't like it. Anyways, but the 71 nose, love it, because the 73 front is flat. So I found this on eBay. I was looking at it, I was like, that's like, and you had it listed as a 73. So looking into it more, it's a 73 with 72 interior, because 73 interior is a bench and looks kind of grandpa-ish, whatever. So 72 interior, it's a 73 VIN number, but doors forward body-wise, or maybe it's here forward actually, is why this kind of doesn't fit exactly. That's what it is. So from here forward is 71 body panels, which has, like I said, the 73 is like barely comes out. It's almost flat. So when I saw this, I was like, I gotta get it, and I got it for like stupid cheap. I'm actually scared to drive it currently because the turn signal, the little lever snapped earlier this year, and after that, I almost got rear-ended several times. People don't know hand signals apparently anymore, but yeah, I almost got stuffed with it a few times, pulling to my driveway actually. So, you know what, I'm not gonna drive this thing until I get my turn signals fixed.
If you want to see AJ's massive diecast collection that was all over the wall, he's got like thousands of 1/64 scale cars and a ton of 1/24s on the other wall. We did a whole video about that over on the Stapleton 42 Extra channel. I'll leave a link in the description. Go check it out. I'll be interested to know who organically comes to that video from just posting it on that channel and who comes from this video. So if you come from this video, go over there, say you came from this one, and see if I answer you. Go ahead and test me.